My mother-in-law hired a hacker to steal $40,000 from my bank account and tried to use that same money to bribe me into canceling my wedding to her son, but I had her arrested. I'm 30, and just 2 days ago, I was supposed to marry my boyfriend of 4 years. But everything spiraled out of control, and all because of my mother-in-law. My now husband is 27, and we actually met at a conference. He came up to me and asked me out, and I said yes right away because he was respectful, made me laugh, and just checked all the boxes I cared about in a man. We introduced each other to our families about 6 months into dating. From day one, his mom made it painfully obvious that she didn't like me. She didn't even try to hide it, her disapproval was loud and clear. But honestly, I'm not the type to let that kind of negativity get to me, so I mostly brushed it off and stayed focused on my relationship. My boyfriend, to his credit, tried to get her to behave. He called her out plenty of times, both in front of me and when they were alone. He later told me she just couldn't get over the fact that I was older, made more money than he did, and even stood a little taller than him. To her, that was apparently a huge deal. But thankfully, it wasn't to him or me. We didn't care about that superficial stuff, and I definitely didn't lose any sleep over what she thought. We'd been solid for almost 4 years and got engaged a year ago, so I figured by now she'd have accepted that I wasn't going anywhere. Interestingly enough, after the engagement, she backed off. She stopped acting weird around me and basically ignored me completely, which was a relief honestly. I'd take silence over passive-aggressive comments any day. In the weeks before the wedding, she barely contacted us. No calls, no drop-ins, nothing. My husband was swamped trying to juggle work and wedding details, so he didn't really notice. I noticed, but I didn't think it was worth bringing up. I just figured she was staying out of our way, which worked for me. Then came the wedding day. I arrived at the venue first. We planned it that way so I could surprise him with a first look. He was supposed to leave the hotel about 30 minutes after me. Unfortunately, his car broke down en route, and because we'd picked this gorgeous but very remote spot near the woods, walking wasn't really an option. So, while I was waiting for him to arrive, my mother-in-law approached and asked if she could have a private word with me. Since we were already running behind and I had time to spare, I agreed. That's when things got surreal. She pulled out her phone and transferred $20,000 into my account right in front of me. I stared at her, completely confused, until she told me point blank, that money was a down payment for me to walk away and cancel the wedding. She said she had another $220,000 waiting for me if I called everything off immediately. I was stunned, completely blindsided. But also, something felt off. I pulled away and told her I needed a moment. I checked my phone and pulled up my bank messages. She stood a few feet away, waiting while I went through the notification. The money had, in fact, landed in my account, but the total balance didn't add up. It was way lower than it should have been, even after the $20,000 deposit. That's when the alarm bells really started ringing. I called my bank right away. That's when they told me that someone had been siphoning off $10,000 a day from my account for the past 4 days. And that same account had sent back half of it today. In other words, my mother-in-law had basically just returned a portion of my own stolen money and tried to bribe me with it. I didn't know how she managed to pull that off, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I rushed back to where she was standing, grabbed her arm so she couldn't bolt, and called over my bridesmaids for backup. She lost it, screaming and thrashing like a maniac, but I wasn't about to back down. This was serious theft, and I needed answers. The police showed up about 30 minutes later. A couple of my bridesmaids and I followed them to the station to give a full report. Meanwhile, my maid of honor stayed at the venue to fill in my husband when he finally arrived, because I knew I'd be caught up dealing with the police. At the station, after some pressure, my mother-in-law finally cracked. She admitted that she'd hired a hacker to get into my phone and drain my bank account. The cybercrime team broke it all down for us. They said I'd probably clicked on a shady link or downloaded something without realizing it, which gave the hacker full access to my phone. Since all the transactions had technically come from my own device, there were no red flags. Even the usual bank alerts had been deleted before I saw them. The hacker had basically taken over my phone, my texts, my apps, everything. I didn't understand all the technical jargon, but it was clear someone had been paid to do this job. And that person had worked with my mother-in-law to steal close to $40,000 from me, just to try and pay me off to leave her son. I still can't believe how twisted that is. But at least she confessed, and the police were able to arrest both her and the hacker she hired. She's in custody now, awaiting trial. As for the wedding, it started a little later than planned, but we went ahead with it. We didn't let the chaos ruin the day. Even once my husband found out what his mom had done, he stood by me, and we got married surrounded by the people who truly mattered. After everything that happened, my husband told me he still wanted to go through with the wedding. He said the day should be about us, not his mother, and that meant a lot to me. It was honestly one of the sweetest things he could have said in that moment. Thankfully, I've since gotten all my money back, and my phone has been completely wiped clean. I also went ahead and changed all my bank details, just to be safe. Now I double-check every single link before I tap on anything. Most things have settled down since then, but the one issue that's still hanging over us is my mother-in-law. Just yesterday, my husband went to visit her in jail, and he came back visibly shaken. He told me she was really remorseful about what she did. She knows she's going to prison regardless, especially since she admitted everything right in front of the police. But apparently, she's asking me to speak up on her behalf, to ask the court for a lighter sentence. She doesn't want to spend the next 5 years behind bars. To my surprise, my husband gently suggested that maybe I should do it. He said she's still his mom, and she's not a young woman anymore. I was floored. I couldn't believe he was actually asking me to go easy on the woman who went so far as to steal my money and try to bribe me just to stop our wedding from happening. She literally hired a hacker, drained my account, and then tried to buy me off using my own stolen money. That's not just petty or spiteful, that's unhinged. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive someone for pulling something so calculated and vile. I love my husband, and he was incredible on our wedding day, but seeing him lean toward his mom's side now is hard to stomach. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I'm being cold. I don't know. But her being older isn't enough reason for me to feel sympathy. She's in her early 50s, not some frail elderly woman. And even if she were, I still wouldn't do what my husband asked. I haven't told him yet, but I have zero plans to visit her or ask for mercy on her behalf. I don't feel guilty about that, either. Update 1: I finally sat down and had the talk with my husband. I explained, as gently but firmly as I could, that I wasn't comfortable asking for leniency for someone who tried to sabotage my life. The conversation wasn't easy, but he listened. He's still hurt about it, of course. That's his mom sitting in a jail cell. His dad passed away a couple years back, so she's the only family he's got left. I get why this is weighing on him. The trial's coming up in a few weeks, and because this is considered a federal offense, he's understandably nervous. He's doing what he can, trying to help her find a decent lawyer. I told him I'm okay with that. He can support her how he sees fit. But expecting me, the person she targeted, to defend her in any way? That's not fair. He understood. He didn't push back after that, and he told me he respects my decision. Honestly, I never expected him to cut his mother off entirely. He's not that kind of person. I knew that from the start. He's always been a good man, and good men don't just abandon their parents, even when those parents mess up badly. I'm not asking him to choose between us. He can be a son and still be a husband. I believe that. Also, for those who asked, I'm pretty sure the hack happened because I clicked on a shady link in a text message. It came from a random number and warned me that if I didn't update my banking info, my account would be locked. It looked official at first, so I went ahead and filled it out. Huge mistake. I never should have entered those details without verifying the source. I was lucky that my mother-in-law confessed, otherwise, I probably wouldn't have seen that money again. So let this be a warning: don't click on sketchy links, and never trust unsolicited texts about your bank. Update 2: a couple days later, something unexpected happened. The hacker's mother came to our house. My husband and I were both home, and while we were a bit hesitant at first, we let her in. She wasn't hostile, she just wanted to apologize. She told us her son took the job for some extra money. Apparently, he's only in his early 20s and comes from a very difficult background. His father had passed away recently, and they were struggling to make ends meet. Usually, he just messed with people's exes online, petty stuff, but this time was different. My mother-in-law had offered him $10,000 for the job, and he saw it as a chance to help his mom with rent and bills. So he accepted, not really thinking about the consequences. Now he's facing a couple of years in prison because he became an accessory to a serious crime. His mom didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding. And I appreciated that. She looked so broken while she was talking, and when she started to tear up, I couldn't help but comfort her a little. Honestly, I wasn't angry at the kid. I didn't know him personally, and he didn't mastermind any of this. He was just a desperate young man who made a bad call. My mother-in-law was the one who dragged him into it. So no, I wasn't mad at him. I told his mom not to worry too much and tried to reassure her a bit before she left. But once she was gone, my husband went off. He spent half an hour ranting about how inappropriate it was for her to come to our home, acting like an apology could fix everything her son had broken. I didn't understand his reaction, especially since he just asked me to show compassion to his own mother. But I guess emotions are complicated, and everyone deals with this kind of betrayal in their own way. The truth is, if my husband was going to be mad at anyone, it should have been his mom. That's exactly what I told him. I tried to explain that the hacker didn't owe us anything, not loyalty, not decency, not even a heads up. What he did was shady, no doubt about it, but he was a stranger. He had no connection to us until his mother got involved and brought him into our lives. It wasn't like he hunted us down out of nowhere. His mom handed over my information like it was nothing, practically gift-wrapped it for the guy. He wouldn't have even known I existed if it weren't for her. But instead of blaming her, my husband started saying I was getting too emotional and that I should be equally angry at the guy who actually did the hacking. He said consoling the hacker's mom but refusing to show any sympathy to his own mother was hypocritical and unfair. That stung. I reminded him, calmly at first, that legally speaking, his mom is a criminal too. That didn't go over well. It hit a nerve, and he snapped. He shouted that I was being heartless, accused me of being cold and uncaring. He said he'd already lost one parent, and now he was about to lose the other, and all I seemed to care about was making sure his mom paid the price. To him, it felt like I was choosing revenge over compassion, and that hurt him. I tried to explain myself, to defend my stance, but the whole thing escalated way too fast. It turned into a shouting match. And then he left. He stormed out of the house a few hours ago, and no matter how many times I've called, I haven't been able to reach him. His phone's off. I'm still trying to process everything. On one hand, I feel bad for him. I know he was incredibly close to his dad, and losing him was brutal. He never had the same bond with his mother, but she's still his mom, and I understand how hard this is for him. I might feel the same way if I were in his shoes. He's been stretched thin lately, juggling work, visiting his mom in jail, and trying to be present with me. It's all been weighing him down. He told me his mom regrets everything and wants to apologize to me. But I can't bring myself to see her. I just can't. She caused so much chaos and pain, and I'm the one who had to deal with the fallout. I honestly don't know how to move forward with this hanging over us. I don't want to lose my husband. We're clearly going through a rough patch right now, but I truly believe we can make it through if we both keep trying. And I know he's still trying. He hasn't given up on me, and he hasn't abandoned his mom either. I just don't want this to tear us apart. I do feel like a jerk for the way I handled things earlier. Maybe I pushed him too far during a time when he was already struggling. He's been my rock for years, and now I feel like I let him down when he needed me most. If anyone has advice, I could really use it. I love my husband. I'm not ready to give up on our marriage, not now, not ever. Update 3, he came home late last night. I stayed up waiting for him, pacing around until nearly midnight. I must have dozed off on the couch because the sound of the keys in the door jolted me awake. He didn't say much, just came in quietly. It was too late to talk, so we went to bed. This morning, over a silent breakfast, he finally broke the ice. He told me he'd gone to his mom's house last night, the house he grew up in. He remembered where she kept the spare key, so he let himself in. Technically, yeah, that's breaking and entering, but I didn't say anything. He looked like he'd been holding in a storm. He said he just needed to be somewhere familiar. Being in that house made him miss his dad something fierce. He kept thinking that if his father were still alive, none of this would have happened. His dad probably would have straightened things out, knocked some sense into his mom, and helped me feel like I was really part of the family. Now, with his dad gone, he felt like the weight of keeping the family together had fallen on him. And he felt like he was failing as a son, a husband, even as a person. He told me he ended up flipping through old photo albums in his parents' room and then napping in his childhood bed before finally heading home. He opened up to me in a way I hadn't seen in days. He admitted that mentally, he was barely hanging on and that he was sorry for how he'd been acting since his jail visit. He told me that before his dad died, he made him promise to look after his mom. That promise kept replaying in his head on a loop, like he was betraying it. He broke down while telling me all this, and I just wrapped my arms around him. We sat there like that for a long time, crying together. I'd been so afraid I was losing him, and in that moment, I finally saw just how broken he felt too. When I got the chance, I told him how I'd been feeling. I explained that I never had anything against his mother in the beginning. But the things she did, the theft, the hack, the bribe, it was too much. There's no easy way to forgive that kind of betrayal. She was never kind to me to begin with, so now I just don't have it in me to sit across from her and pretend. I told him that I respected his desire to help her. I really did. But I couldn't be part of it, and I hoped he could accept that. This wasn't something we had to agree on, it was a conflict of interest, plain and simple. I needed to step away from that part of his life, and he had to handle it on his own. To my relief, he understood. He agreed that his mom had crossed a line and said she needed to deal with the consequences. He would do what he could to support her, but he knew he couldn't save her from what was coming. My husband told me that, as far as being a son goes, he'd done what he needed to do. He'd been checking in on his mother regularly, visiting her every few days to make sure she was okay. He'd also hired a good lawyer on her behalf and was even covering the legal fees himself. Beyond that, there wasn't much else he could do, and he didn't plan to go further. Hearing him say that lifted such a weight off my chest. It finally felt like we were on the same page. I realized he wasn't planning to walk away from our marriage. In fact, when I nervously asked him, just to be sure, if he'd ever considered leaving me over this, he looked genuinely surprised. He told me it hadn't even crossed his mind. To him, this was just a storm we had to weather, something tough we'd been thrown into too early in our marriage. But he reassured me that it didn't change the way he felt about me. He said he still loved me deeply, and that I'd been right to stand my ground. He completely understood why I did what I did. Then he reminded me of the vows we exchanged on our wedding day, and how he still meant every word of them. I couldn't help but tear up hearing that. We sat there for a while, holding each other and crying, just letting all that emotion finally come out. That first week of marriage had been nothing like the dreamy, blissful start we had imagined. Instead, we were thrown headfirst into legal chaos, betrayal, emotional turmoil, and hard choices. But we knew that if we wanted this to work, we had to start learning how to face difficult moments without tearing each other apart. We don't have all the answers, and I honestly don't know what lies ahead. But what I do know is that we're going to take it on together. That's what being married means, showing up, even when things get messy. So we've decided to give marriage counseling a shot, just to help us make sense of everything and work through our emotional patterns before they get worse. My husband tends to bottle up his feelings until he snaps, usually over something small. Meanwhile, I talk too much, even when I can tell he's at his breaking point, which makes me come off like I'm not listening. We're hoping a professional can help us understand each other better and give us the tools to stop these blow-ups before they happen. Update 4: It's been a couple of weeks now, and honestly, things are looking up. We're doing so much better, stronger, even. The counseling sessions have helped a lot. We're also seeing individual therapists, which has made a huge difference. Some of you told me I should leave my husband, that this was all too much too soon. And I understand where you're coming from. But I love him. And for me, walking away never felt like the right move. I know that might not be the best choice for everyone, but I know my heart and I know him. He's not just a devoted son, he's an amazing husband. And that's enough for me. As for his mom, she's facing about 3 years behind bars for what she did. She might get out early for good behavior. Honestly, when I saw her recently, she didn't even seem like the same woman. She looked small, scared, like a shell of who she used to be. And in that moment, I felt something I didn't expect: pity. I've made peace with it now. Holding on to anger won't help anyone, not me, not my marriage. She's already paying the price for her actions, and I'm starting to believe that's enough. I've forgiven her for what she did. It doesn't mean I've forgotten, but I'm not carrying it with me anymore. Maybe when she gets out, I'll visit her. Or maybe even sooner. I'm not sure yet. But I do hope that one day, we can all move past this, my husband, his mom, and me, and find a way to let the past stay where it belongs.